Veterinary medicine is a messy business, both physically and emotionally. Vetsplaining is one veterinarian's attempt to explain and understand her own profession a little better. Join Dr. Lisa McFadden as she delves deep into the medical and business aspects of veterinary medicine.
I thought we would talk about a potentially slightly controversial topic, which is clients restraining their own pets. And I know that some people get really frustrated when they go to the vet and they see that sign, please allow our staff to restrain your pet. And some people find it offensive and think that we're going to manhandle them. And that's not the goal at all. The goal is to ensure safety for your pet, safety for you as the owner, as the pet mommy or daddy, and safety for the staff and safety for the veterinarian. And having a trained personnel restrain the pet, even honestly, if it's just holding onto the collar while we're doing the exam, that is ensuring safety. And a lot of people don't realize when they go to the veterinarian with their cat or dog, they have a little bit of anxiety, even if it's excitement, right? Even if it's not concern that, their pet's sick, or concern for cost, or concern for a million other things that are going on in your life, right? Your pet picks up on every little ounce of energy that you express because you're their person, right? You're their alpha. So they are going to stay keyed into you. So no matter how calm you think you are, most people are a little bit keyed up when they go to the veterinarian's office. And again, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing. It's just your dog or cat will actually pick up on that excitement. And so our staff is trained to restrain in such a way. We always use less restraint the best because the dogs and cats don't fight as much. It's calmer for them. It's calmer for me. It's calmer for my staff. And that really is the kind of exam that we want. We want it to be efficient. And next time we'll talk about what we look for on a physical exam. But we want it to be efficient, and we want it to be thorough, and we want it to be an enjoyable experience as much as possible, or at least a tolerable experience. And if your cat, let's say for instance, is one of those kitties that's really hard to get in the carrier, right? So you either do the pillowcase trick, which is basically you find your kitty, snuggle them at home, put them in a pillowcase, and then put the pillowcase in the carrier. Or you are like me, where you have to leave the carrier out for a couple of days so your cat doesn't freak out as soon as they see it, and then they kind of get acclimated and you put them in the carrier. Nothing good has ever happened to a cat when they've gone into a carrier. So it doesn't matter how calm you are, how calm we are. Cats know, I'm going in a carrier, something's up. Dogs, on the other hand, it's a little bit different. But so let's take your average kitty, right? So you're at home. Let's say it's just for your semi-annual or annual wellness exam. And whatever method you use, you put your kitty in the carrier. And then they're in this carrier and they're trapped. And they can kind of see. And then they get jostled all around, right? And a lot of times people are like, oh, I threw in their favorite blanket. I threw in their favorite toy. I threw in a bunch of treats. Most cats don't want to eat. They're just like more irritated that now all these food particles are bouncing around and hitting them in the head and rolling all over. And some people put catnip in there, which again, these are all great things to try. And sometimes it really does help soothe the kitty. But a lot of times it's just, they go into that fight or flight, their sympathetic nervous system takes off and they can't really absorb any positive stimuli that you would like them to because they don't know what's going to happen. And there are other things you can use, like there's calming supplements and there's Feel Away, which is a feline facial pheromone, all of which can kind of help relax the cat. And that is the goal, right? And we want it to be as positive an experience as possible. But the bottom line is it's not a part of your cat's normal routine. And cats really like routine, right? So we put them in this weird place. We put them in this weirder car. They don't know what it is. It's just like they're in another space that now kind of moves and there's a lot of noise. And then they may or may not meow the whole way. And then they get to this place and then they are in a different location that smells really strange and usually has cold floors, and there's cats or other dogs in there, and there's just a lot of smells. And then they go into a room and they get let out of this carrier. And we think, oh, you're out of the carrier. You're going to be so excited to see us. No, they're not. They're usually not. And again, it's not anything against the cat, right? Like, it's a whole weird experience. They were put in this tiny box, dragged however long to a veterinary clinic, and then taken out. And I think clients sometimes are surprised by the fact that they're not happy to see everybody. I mean, it's a cat. Like, how often is a cat really super happy anyway? Sometimes they are, but most cats are just inwardly giving you the middle finger 90% of the time. So when we come into the room, we need to be able to touch them in weird ways that you don't. We need to look in their ears. We need to look in their eyes. I need to open their mouth. I need to listen to their heart. I need to squeeze their innards. And I need to extend their hips. That usually seems to be the thing they hate the most. But none of this is normal. And none of this is approved, right? They didn't give me their permission. They didn't come in, sign a permission slip saying I can do it. And so the whole thing's weird. And the goal of the restraint is to minimize stress and ensure safety. And so for kitties, our primary restraint mechanism is we usually just put like a light hand by the bottom of the neck in front of the shoulders. I don't like to scruff. We rarely scruff. And it's just, a lot of people say, oh, the scruff harkens back to when they're a kitten. Well, sure. Like when they're kittens and mama picks them up by the scruff and carries around, they freeze, right? Every cat does that like weird freezy thing. But then they hit a certain point in their life, usually the awkward teenage years when, I'm not going to listen to you anymore, mom. And the scruff is no longer a relaxing thing. It's just more stressful. And then a lot of cats alligator roll. And again, the goal is to reduce stress as much as possible, right? It's a stressful situation that we try and do as much as we can to minimize that stress. And by just putting a hand on the back of their neck, front of their shoulders, it helps just to center them a little bit. It helps to just calm them. There's that touch. A lot of animals and people respond to touch. And so they realize that there is a gentle yet stern hand that's there while somebody else, that crazy doctor behind them, usually in the white coat or in my case, a seal blue scrub top, is, poking and prodding. And if cats get really anxious or fractious, we will frequently use towels. Like, it's funny because I have two technicians that we call them the kitty wranglers. One is really the cat whisperer, right? Like any mad cat who's just like, and then I leave the room and I get Jessie and she comes in and the cat just stares at her and then all of a sudden is mesmerized. I don't know what it is about Jessie, but it's cool because you always need one of those in your clinic. And then Kathleen is our other kitty wrangler, and the kitties calm down. They don't do that whole like, oh, I'm under your spell stare. But they realize like, oh, I can't mess with this chick because she knows what she's doing. And it's funny because Jessie likes to cover basically the head and leave the body out. And Kathleen likes to cover the body and leave the head out. And both work, right? And if the cat doesn't like it, then we'll switch it up. But it's very, very, very rare that we have to like use a muzzle. I mean, so I've been practicing for 12 years, and when I first started, we used muzzles fairly regularly, but I'd say in the last 9 years, I rarely use a muzzle on a kitty. I'd rather do a little kitty burrito in a towel, right? So we wrap them up, and they're comfortable, and they're quiet, and it's dark. It's kind of like those blinders you put on a horse in a race. Or if they're really that fractious, we sedate them. I mean, it's just, there's no point in using what we call bruticane to restrain an animal. It's unnecessary. It's not, we used to think it was the most humane thing. It really isn't. And in case anybody's curious where that term comes from, so, like lidocaine or novocaine, they're numbing agents. So somebody sometime came up with the word bruticane, which is kind of like, brute force to restrain your pet. And that's really, veterinary medicine has made a lot of strides for the better in a lot of aspects. And that is one of those respects where we really, if they're really that nervous and they're really that uncomfortable, then we will sedate them. And for kitties, we frequently will use gabapentin. It's an oral. It's a human medication. The trade name is Neurontin, and it was first invented to help with seizures, and they were like, oh, this doesn't do that good of a job. And it helps with like focal facial seizures, but then they realized it helped with nerve pain, and that's where you get your future generations like Lyrica, which is the generic name is pregabalin. And so gabapentin helps with nerve pain, but at a higher dose than we would use for nerve pain, it really makes kitties real nice. And it doesn't like, it just relaxes them. It kind of takes that, I'm at 1,000 down to like, I'm at 100. And it just allows them to not be so stressed by the visit. So that is usually something that for kitties that get quite fractious, we'll have the clients give. an hour or two before they come. And it's funny, there's different protocols. Like some people give it the night before and then again before they come. I just have them give it like an hour before. And if it stops working for me, then I'll change it up. You know, I don't think any one protocol is necessarily better than the other. It's just really whatever helps your pet and helps us get our job done, get the exam done. So, you know, the goal, circling back to the whole point of this talk, got a little sidetracked. You know, the whole goal is we really do have your pet's best interest at heart. You know, we need to be able to do an exam to make sure they're healthy. And if they're not healthy, we need to do an exam to find out why. And we really just don't want anyone to get hurt. And, you know, I trust all of my assistants and technicians. They do a fantastic job. And it's not that I don't trust the client. It's just most clients don't know how to accurately hold a cat that's getting, you know, wiggly or nervous. And a lot of clients are like, oh, scruff, that's what you're supposed to do. And then they scruff their cat. And, you know, if you've never scruffed your cat before, right? Like you dragged them out of their house, you put them in this weird environment, and now you're going to scruff me? And that's usually when they like whip around and then bite. And unless you're a Bengal, like I love Bengals, they're so pretty, but they will bite for no reason. The last time I got bit by a cat, I feel like I have to knock on wood again. It was probably like 10 years ago, and I was a Bengal, so cute, and I did my exam, and I was done, and I was typing my record, and I literally turned around to say goodbye to the owner, and the cat just like leapt off the table and grabbed onto my arm. It was just like dangling there for a little bit. So, you know, most cats give you warning. Bengals, I mean, they're wild animals, right, that we bred to a kitty, and we thought, oh, they're going to be fine. I mean, they're a little crazy, but they're so cute and pretty. And they're one of the few breeds that you can actually walk on a harness outside, which is amazing to me. When I lived in Chicago at the apartment complex where I was, there was a lady that owned 2 Bengals that would walk them around the block on harnesses and leashes. And then I would walk my dog, and the 2 Bengals were just like, come at me, bro. They were so confident and, you know, would walk with their chests sticking out. And, you know, clients want to help hold because they think that's my pet. I know them best. I know how to comfort them. And that is true 99% of the time. Just that 1% of the time when you're at the vet, chances are they're not going to respond to the comfort that you think that they need. And cats are really good at something called redirected aggression, right? So they get pissed off for whatever reason. They're at the vet and I touch them and they get irritated, but my technician is holding in such a way that they can't bite me. And then the owner comes and inevitably like squish in the face and puts their face and their fingers in the mouth, and that's how they get bit. And again, if that happens, right? So I can't tell you how many times I ask people nicely, you know, please let us restrain. You know, we don't. I usually say, okay, let's say Sarah's going to hold on to Fluffy so that Fluffy doesn't think you're the bad guy and associate this visit with you. And most clients get it. Oh, okay, cool. I'm being politely dismissed. I'm going to sit down, or I'm going to stand a little bit farther away. And some people don't. Some people keep like trying to feed them treats or trying to love on their face, or, you know, I am always surprised that there's like a certain subset of clients who think, oh, my pet is at the vet and on a table, and it's usually like the little fluffy dogs, and they've had a mat next to their mouth for 4 years, and now is the perfect time for me to pick at it. Or, oh, I just noticed they have like a wart, and then start picking at it, and that wart happens to be like right next to their face. And I get it, you know, you're nervous and or somebody else is holding your dog and it's a position they're not normally in, so you get to see things that you wouldn't normally see, but just don't stick your fingers near the mouth. And if your dog gets upset and they start thrashing or they start whining or they start barking, you know, it's okay for you to say to the veterinarian, hey, I'm uncomfortable. I think that Fluffy's uncomfortable. I think we need to regroup and we need to come up with another plan. Totally fine. And then that's honestly mostly what I do, because again, if I'm trying to do my exam and they are stressing, right, and they're starting to get anxious and they go from like a 400 to 1,000, I don't know what the top number is in this arbitrary scale that I made, but so like they go, you know, they double in their anxiety level, me continuing to try and like, oh, just get it done, just get it done, just get it done. All that's going to do is make them even more stressed out. And the higher stress level they get, the harder it is for me to get something done, the longer it takes, and the worse it is the next time. So there is no benefit for me to let them continue to get stressed out. It is much better for the pet, for the owner, for the staff, and for myself to say, hey, Fluffy's really, really upset. And you always get the response of, they never act this way, which I get it. A lot of times you don't think they do, but they usually do. The response of, oh, they